of us. You have goals, right? You have dreams, things you genuinely want. So why is it that so many of us still feel, well, kind of lost or stuck? Let's figure that out.
The reason we feel this way can be summed up in a really powerful metaphor: the inner storm. This is where that lost feeling really comes from.
Now, what on earth does that mean? Well, think about a storm for a second. It's loud, it's dramatic, it's packed with energy. And that's exactly how we tend to go after our goals, with this huge sudden blast of motivation. But what always happens after a storm blows through? You know that feeling, that immense, sudden wave of enthusiasm. It's like an explosion of energy. But the problem is, it vanishes just as fast as it showed up. And what does it leave behind? Usually a mess of unfinished plans, a new habit of procrastination, and that awful feeling of just being stuck. Sound familiar? Okay, so if the storm is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, this brings us to a totally different way of thinking, a philosophy that really holds the secret to genuine long-term success. Let's call it the philosophy of the stream. You know, it really all boils down to this question, doesn't it? What is the actual difference between someone who consistently gets things done and someone who is always struggling, even if they both want the same things? And here's the answer. The difference is something called quiet discipline. Real, lasting success isn't some big, dramatic, chaotic storm. No, it's a quiet, calm, persistent stream. Let's just put them side by side. A storm, loud and chaotic. A stream, quiet and calm. A storm appears out of nowhere and then it's gone. A stream, it never stops. So while a storm has this temporary, disruptive power, the stream has a lasting force. It's the kind of force that can literally reshape the planet over time. That is the kind of power we should be aiming for. Okay, so to really embrace this philosophy of the stream, we first have to kind of redefine what we think discipline even is. Because for a lot of us, that word carries some pretty negative baggage. Let's just face this one head on. When you hear that word discipline, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it punishment? Forcing yourself to do stuff you hate? Depriving yourself of everything fun? If it is, we need to completely overhaul that definition. So here's the big idea. Discipline is not a punishment. Think of it as the training that sets you free. Free from what, you ask? Free from the prison of your own inner chaos, your moods that change on a dime, and all the distractions that are constantly pulling at you. It's a tool for freedom. And this is the real prize. When you commit to doing something small every single day, you're not just building towards some external goal like, I don't know, finishing a book. The most important work is happening on the inside. You're building a stronger mind and a more resilient version of yourself. All right, so we've got the philosophy, but how do we actually do it? Let's get into the practical, actionable plan for making that transformation from a chaotic storm into a consistent, powerful stream. This is the question that really matters, isn't it? How do we make this happen in our real, everyday lives? Well, the good news is it's not as complex as you might think. It all comes down to one simple law. And here it is, the law of small, repeated actions. It's 3 steps. First, choose one path. Don't be a storm trying to rage in 10 different directions. Pick one thing and focus your energy. Second, and this is the toughest one, you have to show up daily. Consistency is everything. You have to commit to the process, especially on the days you really don't feel like it. And third, you have to ignore the need for quick results. This is so important. A single drop of water does absolutely nothing to a giant rock. But 1,000 drops, 1,000,000 drops, they will carve a canyon. You have to trust that process. So, after all of this quiet, consistent effort, what's the ultimate payoff? What's the big reward for becoming the stream? It's a quality we can call steadfastness. Let's really paint a picture of what this final reward looks like. What do you really gain when you trade that temporary thrill of the storm for the quiet persistence of the stream? The ultimate reward is steadfastness. This isn't just an achievement, it's a deep internal state of being. It's a kind of unshakable strength that you build yourself, one drop at a time, one day at a time. So what does being steadfast actually feel like? Well, for one, you're no longer a hostage to your own moods. You don't need to feel motivated to get things done. And the big external storms of life, setbacks, criticism, unexpected challenges,
They'll still happen, but they won't be able to move you. In the end, you become the stream that quietly and calmly shapes the very landscape of your own life.
It all comes down to this powerful truth. Life does not reward temporary explosions of effort, but rather the patience of confident and continuous steps. So, the only real question left is for you. What is the one goal, the one rock in your life that you will choose to start carving, one single drop at a time, starting
Perfect
today?
crime. No witnesses, not a single clue left behind, nothing. How in the world do you catch a thief who basically vanished into thin air? Well, that's the puzzle right at the heart of our story.
Okay, let's set the scene. You've got this peaceful kingdom, and suddenly it's thrown into total chaos. A major crime has gone down, and the entire court is in a full-blown panic. Well, almost everyone. The one person who should be the most worried, the king, he's strangely calm.
So here's the deal. The royal treasury has been cleaned out, and the whole palace is freaking out. You got guards scrambling, ministers panicking. It's a mess. And the king, he's just sitting there, totally calm. Now, this isn't weakness. Oh no, it's the quiet confidence of someone who's already a few steps ahead.
So, what's a wise king to do when faced with a crime like this? He doesn't start shouting or threatening people. Nope. Instead, he comes up with a plan that is just brilliantly weird. And it all starts with a very unusual get-together. His first move is so simple, but it's also huge. He calls in everyone who has even set foot in the palace in the last 7 days. We're talking guards, servants, ministers, visitors. Literally no one is exempt. And just like that, a massive crowd becomes a giant pool of suspects. The next morning, this whole nervous group is herded into a hall, and they're all standing in front of this large, mysterious object. You can just imagine the tension in the room, right? What is this thing? Is it some kind of torture device? A magical artifact? And to make things even creepier, it's completely covered with this sheet of black silk. See, the king is a master of theatrics. He knows that what we can't see is often way more powerful than what we can. The suspense in that room must have been off the charts.
And now, the king gives his contraption a name that's practically designed to send a shiver down the spine of whoever is guilty. He calls it the Mirror of Truth, and he claims it has a very, very special power.
Just listen to that for a second. This isn't about catching someone on a security camera. The king is claiming this mirror literally reflects your soul, your guilt, your conscience. It's an absolutely brilliant psychological play because it shifts the whole game from looking for outside evidence to the turmoil happening inside the thief's own mind. Now, the instructions he gives seem so simple, it's almost silly. He says, each of you will walk up, lift the silk, and just look at yourself. Now, if you're innocent, this is just a weird but totally harmless task. But if you're the guilty one, this must feel like you're walking the plank. So, one by one, every single person walks up to the mirror and does what they're told. When the last person is done, this heavy silence just falls over the room. The test is over. So, who is it? How could this silent object have possibly pointed out the thief? And without even a moment of hesitation, the king scans the crowd, and his finger lands on one man. The drama is at its absolute peak. Out of this whole massive group, he's somehow picked his target. And then, the king gives an order that makes absolutely no sense to anyone. Arrest this man, he says, the one with the cleanest hands. Not the guy who looked nervous, not the one who was sweating, but the one with the cleanest hands. What? This is the question just buzzing through everyone's mind. And you're probably thinking it too. In a room full of people who all did the exact same thing, how could being clean possibly be a sign of guilt? The court is totally baffled. All right, it's time for the big reveal. This is where we see just how clever this king really is. That mirror, it wasn't magic at all. It was a perfectly laid psychological trap. So here's the secret. The mirror of truth, it was just a plain old piece of glass. But, and this is the genius part, the king had secretly coated the entire thing with a fine black layer of soot. The magic wasn't in the mirror. It was all in the setup.
And here's exactly how the trap worked.
The innocent people, they had nothing to hide, so they just did what they were told. They walked up, lifted the curtain, touched the glass, and got their hands dirty with soot. No big deal. But the thief, oh, he was paralyzed by fear. He actually believed the mirror's magic was real. So terrified of being exposed, he only pretended to touch it. His guilt made him overthink everything, and his fear is what kept his hands perfectly clean.
So, the thief is caught, the treasure is found, and everything's great. But the story's not really over. The real lesson here is so much deeper than just a clever trick to catch a criminal. See, in the end, the real mirror of truth wasn't that piece of glass. It was the thief's own guilty conscience. The very fear that made him try so hard to hide is exactly what made him stand out. He played himself. He walked right into his own trap. And that brings us to the really powerful idea here. Our actions, especially the ones driven by fear or guilt, often tell a much truer story than our words ever could. You can't really hide a guilty heart, because in the end, your own conscience becomes the most revealing mirror there is. So I'll just leave you with this thought. The king needed a mirror covered in soot to see the truth, but our own actions reflect who we are on the inside every single day. The only question is, what does your conscience reflect?